It feels naked if I don't have something right here while I'm talking. A lot of stuff has been happening at 343. Not a lot of stuff happening with Halo Infinite, unfortunately that's still pretty much the same, but management shakeups, a lot of them. In fact, Bonnie Ross has left 343. She announced via Twitter that she's stepping down from 343 due to a family medical emergency, which is completely understandable. Chances are there are more reasons that this is happening. This comes off the back of multiple shakeups. High-profile departures, such as Quinn Del Hoyo, the previous Sandbox lead, 343's former art director, Sparth, Jerry Hook, and Paul Crocker. Jerry Hook being the live service designer, as well as Paul Crocker being the narrative designer. Now, Microsoft has been in the process of restructuring 343, and in fact, it's kind of been a process that started way back when Chris Lee was removed from Halo Infinite and replaced with Joe Staten. Currently, as of right now, we've got a man by the name of Pierre Heinz, who's being the studio head, with the roles of general manager for the franchise as well as business and operations being divided up between two people, Brian Koski, and Elizabeth Van Wyck. I think it's pretty easy to lay the blame of a game's failures at the feet of one person in particular, but rarely is a game's failure due to one specific person. The shakeup of management at 343 could bear some interesting fruit in the next few years, but unfortunately the culture at a studio, if it's problematic, it can ensure that issues persist long after previous management has departed. What I'm hoping with this new management shakeup is that there is also a re-evaluation of 343's studio culture to make sure that problems don't persist. Within Xbox Game Studios, 343 Industries unfortunately has this reputation for being a very stressful studio to work with due to its culture. You know, Halo Infinite, it was a hard game to get out the door for 343. COVID definitely threw a monkey wrench into the production, and the former director, Chris Lee's lack of solid vision early in development definitely caused problems. But those factors aren't purely to blame. Infighting between different departments, issues with the technology due to breakdowns, and a lack of enthusiasm for important parts of the game from certain people in power, and just overall a lack of healthy, solid teamwork between the different departments are what led to the game that we ultimately play, or in the case of Halo Infinite on PC, try to play, but then it crashes. From what I understand, there hasn't been a lot of time to actually celebrate the launch of the campaign for 343. It's mostly just been try to put out these technical fires that were started during the production. Since the launch of the game, we've seen a lot of people depart the studio. Some of that is due to contracts ending after 2 years, but other things are due to, well, better job offers at rival studios, as well as the sad reality of a lot of people feeling burnt because of how tough, stressful, and disorganized the production of Halo Infinite was, and they want no part in any more of that. Prior to launch, I feel kind of silly because I truly believed in Halo Infinite. I thought that there was a vision. I was under the impression that there was one. Sitting here well after the game's launch, seeing how many issues it's had and continue to have, as well as talking to various friends about how stressful the game was to make, it's kind of a miracle the game even shipped in the first place. The last few years have been really difficult for 343's developers, and I'm sure the next couple years will be even more difficult, especially so for the community team who has to deliver bad news after bad news. Look, don't go out of your way to harass the social media managers. They're just doing their job, man. They weren't responsible for Halo Infinite's shortcomings. And the same goes for all the people on the ground level, the developers of the game. The fact that they were able to assemble a proper video game with the poor leadership and breakdowns in communication and technology, it speaks to their talent as developers. And I hope wherever they end up next, whether it's the next Halo game or other projects from outside studios, I hope that they have proper leadership that can take advantage of their incredible talent. The last few years have been really difficult for 343's developers, and I'm sure the next couple years will be even more difficult as the studio gets used to its new power structure. I'm not personally sure that Halo Infinite is going to have a 10-year lifespan. I honestly doubt it'll ever become the game that we want it to be. What I'm sure is going to happen is that Halo Infinite will eventually be patched into a place where it is relatively on par with Halo 5 in terms of content. Now that's fine, obviously, but it's still unfortunately just short of where the series was during its prime. It probably has another 3-4 years on its lifespan, and then I am positive we're gonna see another game announced in the series. And when that hypothetical game is announced, this is what I want to see from it. The first thing that I want to see from this hypothetical future game, I want to see a vision decided on early in development. If it's a classic, traditional style Halo game, early on in production, all aspects of that need to be considered. Campaign with co-op support, firefight or a PvE equivalent, multiplayer, forge mode, and a proper progression system. These 5 things are important to the Halo experience, and you can't just launch the game without any of those. But if 343 decides to make something completely new for the series, shake things up a little bit, try their hand at a different kind of Halo game, then they need to make sure that it's content-rich enough to justify our time with it. I speak for myself only, but I'm kind of fed up with the lackluster launches from 343. Halo 5 launched in a very similar state to Halo Infinite. With Halo 5, that was kind of shocking. With Halo Infinite, it's more disappointing that lessons seemingly weren't learned. And if 343's next Halo game launches content incomplete, I'm not going to stick around. There's better games for me to play. The second thing that I want this hypothetical game to work on is its business model. Usually the business model is factored into the development process. Usually it compromises and encroaches on a lot of cool designs. People can pitch awesome ideas and then the business team can shut it down because they worry that it distracts players from the in-game store too much. If the goal for Halo is to kind of create, like Fortnite, like Warzone, an online digital Chuck E. Cheese, this social space where you can hang out with your friends, play some games, maybe spend a little bit of your money, then what Halo needs to do is actually make that online digital Chuck E. Cheese entertaining for people. You can't really ship a Halo game with no sorts of social hubs, no sorts of social features, no lobbies or anything like that, and then be sitting there on a weekly basis going, "Money, please."
Money, please! Money, please.
It doesn't work like that. You need to give us a reason to stay around, feel emotionally connected to the game, feel immersed in the world that we're supposed to log into on a weekly basis. And because that emotional hook is there, then we might be inclined to spend some money. My third thing would be that this future game should look towards what rival studios are doing, kind of like Bungie, where they have weekly updates for the community. Or you can even look at Splatoon, weirdly enough. That's an odd comparison. Every day you log in, you get this news broadcast on the new changes that are happening to the game. Give the players this sense that things are constantly changing, that things are being constantly produced. Give them a weekly talk show or a weekly blog or something. It gives not just the community something to be excited about, but it also gives content creators something on the YouTube space to constantly drive your attention back to the game. It's almost like how you bear a hard week of work because Friday, you know your favorite show is going to release a new episode. If 343 were to craft their own weekly blog, a This Week at 343 type of thing, it would keep people's heads in the Halo clouds, so to speak. And then finally, take more care with polishing the experience. I understand that Halo Infinite was a unique case. For a majority of its development, engine builds were coming in broken and unfinished, and when it was that time to actually start laying down the foundation for the game, well, it's hard to make a solid foundation when all of your tools are unfinished and broken, you know? So as of right now, Halo Infinite has years worth of tech debt built up, and I understand that that's really hard to fix. I hope that 343 focuses a lot on polishing the experience, making it feel fluid, not just the main menus and stuff, but even in-game as well. And so there you go. Those are my hopes for the hypothetical next game, which I personally do believe is happening. I think that Halo Infinite will become a worthwhile game in a few years, but I'm kind of looking towards the future right now because I don't want these mistakes to happen a third time. I'd be curious to hear from all of you how you feel about my little list of desires. Did I miss anything? In fact, you guys can add to it in the comment section if you'd like. And I want to give a special thank you to the members of the channel whose names should be appearing right there. They are, there they go. And then I want to give a special thank you to the people on Patreon, whose names are also going to appear right there they go as well. They're all jumbled and mixed up, and now it looks very disorganized. I'm going to be getting started on the evolution of Halo's Jackals, which you guys should expect to see relatively soonish in the next couple of weeks. And also, I'm going to be working on my second channel, where I'm going to cover non-Halo, non-FPS type games. Because, you know, I like making positive videos. And as a Halo fan, it sucks. It affects your mental state when you're constantly making videos about how negative the current experience is. Because honestly, there's not a lot of positive to talk about in the Halo sphere right now. So I'm just going to focus on positive things to talk about. With that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video, and take care of yourself.